Hey, what's up y'all? It's Delantics, and today we'll be covering the top 30 augments to take at 2-1 in patch 14.16b. We had a big patch nerfing Syndra, and after that we had a B patch nerfing Ahri, Fiora, and a few hero augments, so this is the result of that. Patch 14.17 should be coming out this Wednesday, so be on the lookout for a patch review video coming soon. Without further ado, let's go. Starting with gold augments, the best one at 3.99 is Witchy Wup. You'll gain a 2-star Poppy, and your strongest Poppy's ability no longer shields, but instead strikes 3 times, dealing 85% of the original damage. So her cast slams on her hammer 3 times in succession and deals a bunch of damage. And what they did in the last patch is upgrade the damage by 5% and decrease the time between the hammer hits by 0.10 seconds each. So she gets more damage out and gets it out a lot faster. By far the best board to play with this is the Ahri board. You can see that the vertical Witchcraft units perform a lot worse. The best items for Poppy aren't tank items, but are rather bruiser items. The best build I've found is Bloodthirster plus Infinity Edge and Hand of Justice for the crit. Steric's Gauge is also really good. And if you manage to hit it, Silvermere Dawn is really broken on this Poppy because of the 165% bonus AD. Portal Crust is at 4.05, gain a Portal Emblem and a Cassidon. 8 Portal is just really strong, and Portal is really strong in the early game as well. This is going to help you get to 6 and 8 Portal much faster. Simply play Rise around 8 Portal. Portal Spat gives a shield, so it goes on Diana or Nasus, and you're good to go. Frosty Frontline. The Frost trait also grants 1 placeable Frost statue equipped with Eternal Winter that gains health with each Frost trait level. The first time it would die, it will instead heal 40% of its health over 7 seconds if an ally is alive. You'll also gain a Work and a Zillion so you can activate the Frost. One thing to note with this is that you do need Frost in to actually get the dummy, and it scales up with your Frost trait. So you want to play 7 Frost with this. This is a lot stronger if you get an emblem, because then you can hit 7 Frost without Diana. If you get 2 emblems, you can play for fast 9, and with Diana, you can get 9 Frost in. So this is so much stronger with a Frost emblem. You take this, and then hopefully you get one. Really good in portals like Spatula and Trainer Golems. Frosty Frontline is super good right now, especially because there are a ton of Rageblade carries, Callista, Rise, Smolder, Jinx, and this shuts them down pretty fast. All that shimmers. Open an armory and choose a gold generating artifact item and gain a magnetic remover. Your max interest is also increased to 7. Still really good, even though Mogul's Mill did get nerfed by 50 health, you still want to take that. You can play this with any comp, but you preferably want to play it with Wukong or Vex reroll. Since they're both solo Stoneplay users, this is really good for them. Here are the stats again for the Shimmer Scale items this patch. Mogul's Mill, highest play rate, highest place, super good. Also really good in the early game if you can play any strong tank, preferably Shapeshifters because of their massive HP gain. Spider Queen. Gain a 2-star Elise. Your strongest Elise's ability no longer stuns, but instead poisons her target and the 2 closest enemies with 130% of her ability's damage over 3 seconds. So this is Elise's hero augment, really strong early and mid game and falls off a bit. Since it's a 1-cost reroll, you can get it pretty often and no one is really holding Elise. The goal is to play around 6 Shapeshifter and 2 Blaster with Varus and eventually Smolder. You can also roll for Jace 3 at the same time. Jace 3 just got buffed and is really strong right now. You don't have to itemize Jace, you instead want to itemize Elise first. Elise likes a Warmogs to scale with her Shapeshifter, as well as BT for the healing and shield, and then Archangels help you scale throughout the fight. Super easy for Elise to live and scale because of the Shapeshifter bonus. Nasus can take any tank items, and then Smolder is going to be Rageblade plus Last Whisper for the Armor Shred. Unleash the Beast. Gain a Steric's Gauge. When its effect triggers, the holder gains 30% attack speed for the rest of combat and immunity to crowd control for 10 seconds. This is extremely good in the warrior comps, whether it's Nyla and Akali reroll or Fiora. You can also use this to play towards Fiora Callista, and Olaf is a decent user of it, but the best user by far is definitely the Nyla and Akali reroll. And you basically want to stack whoever you get the more copies of first. The item itself is really good on Nyla because it gives her attack speed, and Nyla scales really well with attack speed. Also just super good on Fiora and Akali as well. You basically want to make as many of them as possible, and stacking most of them is actually pretty good as long as you have an extra healing item. But yeah, free gauge is already really good for warriors, and then the attack speed and the Quicksilver effect is really good. Flexible. Gain a random emblem. At the start of the next 2 stages, gain a random emblem again. Your team gains 25 health for each emblem they're holding. So this got nerfed to the next 2 stages, so it's now 3 total. Still way too strong. And even if they nerf it to only 2 emblems, I still think it's going to be really good. The reason is because the emblems that are strong right now have extra effects on the unit that they're placed on, right? For example, Portal gives a shield, Pyro gives attack speed and execute. Witchcraft gives a ton of true damage at 6. Frost gives 80 in AP. Sugarcraft gives 80 in AP. The list goes on. There are some exceptions like Arcana. Arcana you want to put on whoever doesn't have items and then assign them the emblem if you have a ton of emblems. And Arcana with Flexible makes Flexible super OP. But yeah, it's totally random, so honestly, try your best. There are way too many boards to share that you can play with this. Mort did say he is considering moving it to a Prismatic, so we'll see how that goes. High horsepower. Gain a 2-star Lilia. Your strongest Lilia gains 150% attack speed and moves 150% faster. Her ability also deals bonus damage, but only hits 1 target. Now, horsepower got buffed in this patch and then got a B patch nerf. She gains less bonus attack speed, so 125 now, and then 275 ability damage. and then 275 bonus ability damage instead of 300. You can also see Molten Caramel got nerfed, as well as for Vanguard, if you're wondering where Rumble is. So with this augment, you also play the Ahri, Poppy, Zoe board. Your best items for Lilia are going to be Bloodthirster plus Crown Guard plus Spark. The bonus damage is a huge amount, and Crown Guard gives you survivability and AP, and Bloodthirster, with the amount of damage you're dealing, will heal you for a ton. There is the 6 Bastion Callista version, but the placement is so much worse than the Ahri one. Spellblades. Whenever one of your champions casts, their next attack deals bonus magic damage equal to 150% of their ability power. Spellblades did get nerfed this patch, losing 25% AP, but it's still extremely strong. The best user of it by far is the Ahri Zoe board, and then Veigar is a close second. It's decent in all AP comps, but it's much better in ones that cast a lot. So that's Zoe, Ahri, Veigar, and Karma. Usually you want to stack Ahri with items, but in Spellblades you actually want to stack Zoe because she casts her ability and attacks much more often than Ahri does. Ahri has to shoot at her ball and then wait for it to come back, whereas Zoe can keep attacking, throw a bubble, attack again, super fast. That means she's going to get a lot more procs of Spellblades off than Ahri would. So items in Zoe are actually better. Best ones are Blue Buff, Nashers, Shojin, Shiv, Deathcap, Adaptive. Red Buff and Merlo aren't great because she only attacks one person, and she's already getting a ton of AP from Ahri's Arcana, so don't stress about building Deathcap. Focus on her items and then items for your main tank, and of course if you have leftovers you can put them on Ahri. In 10th is Learning to Spell. Your team gains 18 bonus ability power and permanently gains 1 ability power every 2 takedowns. So this is super good in both Ahri Zoe and Veigar. If you get an early Veigar off your orbs, play this. If you get an early Zoe and Ahri, play this. You can pivot into it, but you're going to lose a lot of value from the early AP. The units have to be the exact same copies on the board when they get the takedowns to store the extra AP. So it's not like you can just put in whoever and they'll get the AP. They have to be the ones that get the takedowns. And of course, remember that Ahri scales up bonus AP very well, so she is the best benefactor of this augment. Kicking off the Prismatics, we've got an upgraded adventure with a 4.04 average placement. It's also got a win rate of 21%. So 21% of the time this augment is taken, it goes first. This is a very powerful augment because the cash out rewards are so strong. After upgrading 4 champions to 3-star, gain a reward, and you will also gain 4 random 1-cost champions when you click it. Here's the table of the possible cash outs you can get. They're all extremely strong, and as long as you're playing a strong comp, you should be able to get a first pretty easily. This will only really lose to stuff like 10 portal prismatic traits. The best comp for this by far is the Lilia, Poppy, Ahri, Zoe reroll. It's the same exact Ahri reroll board as usual. Roll to 50 at 4 and 5 until you hit Lilia or Poppy 3-star plus Zoe 3-star, and then you can go to 6 to find the other tank and your Ahri. Since at level 6, you have slightly better odds to find 2 costs. Slap in a Hecarim for Arcana and another Bastion, and then go for either 4 Bastion for Scholar or 4 Bastion for Arcana in the late game. The cash outs that you get will carry you through the entire game, likely to a first. You see here, if you get to Xerath, Tahm Kench, Rise, the average placement goes up all the way to 2.7 to 2.3. With Xerath, it's a win rate of 43%, and that is nuts for an augment. There are other boards that you can play with this. One that I've done is Nomzi reroll with Nomzi, Twitch, Elise, or Jace, and then plus Shyvana as your main tank. And a secret tech with this board is that if you get the Fishbones cash out, and the way Fishbones with Nomzi works, and a lot of other carries, right, like Ahri as well, is that they will shoot their abilities straight to the enemy's backline at random. This is because Fishbones doubles your attack range and causes each of her attacks to target a random enemy. So if Nomzi randomly attacks the enemy carry, she will fire the beam straight at the carry and snipe them 100 to 0. This works especially well if you have Sniper's Focus, and this combo is what you get from the Augment Marksman's Toolbox. Another one you can play is Multi-Strikers with Ashe, Jax, Castan, and Akali, but I find this to be a lot weaker than the Ahri board. You only want to play anything that's not Ahri if you know you're going to be contested on Ahri, especially if someone has something like Prismatic Ticket. Next is Frost Crown. Frost Crown gives you a Frost Emblem, a Protector's Vow, and a Swain. Frost Emblem is super strong right now because they buffed the Frost AP and AD given at each breakpoint. It's now an extra 5 at 5, 7, and 9, and an extra 1 at 3. Just make sure you remember that it only gives the Frost units, so you have to place the emblem on your carry. So you'll see here it's best on Smolder and Varus, and then a second one is good on Nasus because you want to play Nasus in as your main tank, unless you have a Swain 3. The board you want to play towards is 7 Frost with a Varus carry and a Nasus tank. You'll be rolling on level 8, then you can go 9 and find Diana, replacing one of the 1 costs, usually Warwick. You can flex around Varus carry, you can pivot into Smolder, but usually Varus is fine enough, as well as Olaf carry. Prismatic Ticket, this is good because the rerolls are good. It did get a slight nerf from 50 to 45%, but basically I explained why it's good in the last video. In previous sets when you had Prismatic Ticket, you had to use it on the same turn, otherwise it would expire. But here you can bank them forever and have an infinite amount of rerolls banked. This means if you're low money, you can save the rerolls for later and not grief your econ by buying units. And save your rerolls until you have a charm available, because you can only get one charm per turn. You can get the best charms for the round by rolling through more options. A fourth reason of why it's so good is because it counts every reroll as the chance to generate another one. So this not only counts the natural shop reroll you get at the start of every round, any rerolls you get from pressing the reroll key, but also all free rerolls from charms, and there are a lot available. The best reroll comps right now are Ari reroll is really good, Jinx Wukong, Hunters, and then a good user of this is the Vex Veigar reroll. Vex Veigar is really 1st or 8th, but if you do hit, it's almost unstoppable. Shimmer Scale Essence at a 4.13. This augment gives you a Mogul's Mail immediately, and then in 5 rounds gain a Gambler's Blade. So Moguls did receive a 50 health nerf from this patch, but it's still really strong in generating gold. It's still one of the better owner effects because of the infinite gold generation potentially in the early game and mid game is really, really strong, especially when you're playing strong solo tanks like Wukong and Vex in your reroll comps. And then Gambler's Blade is still good, didn't get touched. I think this augment is pretty flexible in just about any comp. Mogul's Mail and Gambler's Blade are good items in any comp, but the best user of this by far is the Jinx Wukong level 7 reroll. You play Wukong plus 4 Hunters, plus Zillion and Bard for Preserver, and you reroll for Jinx and Wukong 3-star. This is because Wukong's ability passive gives him 30% bonus armor and MR from all sources, and Mogul's Mail gives 35 armor and MR from its stacking. If you can get a Wukong online with a Moguls and Stone Plates or a Stone Plate plus a Redemption, it will live for a long time, generating a ton of gold. And then Gambler's Blade is just super good on Jinx. One thing I've heard about Jinx right now is that Jinx is bugged, so she doesn't actually get bonus AD from Hunter. So you actually just want attack speed on her right now. I assume it's going to get bug fixed and she'll get a bit more compensation buff for that, so we'll see. I still think she's really strong, but you want to build attack speed items instead of AD. And the more attack speed you have, the more gold you can generate with Gambler's Blade, so super good combo. Definitely the best augment for that comp. Buried Treasures 3 gain a random item component at the start of the next 6 rounds, including this one. So by the time you hit 3-1, you'll have 6 extra components. This is just a really good augment for all comps in general. It's especially better if you want to play towards a lose streak or you're not trying to win streak because you have delayed power spikes. But generally in this meta, people are playing weaker boards because it's a reroll meta. So you can actually get away with win streaking with this kind of often. It is still 1 component after every round. So by 2-5, you have 3 extra components on everyone else. There are some obvious exceptions, but a lot of prismatics right now are pretty delayed in power. Some of them are really strong right now, like at what cost, while others scale up over time or give you XP or econ like Prismatic Ticket. So you can actually get away with win streaking with buried treasures pretty often. This is good in every comp. Every comp right now has a tank and 2 carries that want to be itemized, so having the extra components is super good. This is also really powerful with Sugarcrafters, which scale off each component that you have, but generally you only want to play Sugarcrafters if you already have an emblem, so portals like Wandering Golems and the Spatula one are good spots to take that and play for that. Next is Portal Crown at a 4.33 at 2-1. You'll gain a Portal Emblem, a Spear of Shojin, and a Kassadin. You just simply play towards Rise Carry 8 Portal with Nora and Nami in at the end. Your Portal spot should go on a secondary tank because it gives them the big shield. That's usually Nasus and then eventually Diana. 8 Portal is just a really strong comp right now. They did actually nerf the bomb damage from 3 Portal, but you're going to be hitting Portal 6 and Portal 8 pretty fast with this augment. One caveat of this is that it gives you a Spear of Shojin. Spear of Shojin is okay on Rise, but I definitely prefer a Rage Blade over Shojin. Generally with this augment, you just place the Shojin on Rise, but if you can greed for it and have a lot of components, you'd rather play the Shojin on a secondary carry like Nami, Nora, or Xerath. I like Rage Blade a lot more because his ability directly scales with attack speed, and if you have Rage Blade plus Shojin, you're going to spend a lot of time casting, but not a lot of time ramping up your attack speed. And his best combo item is Archangel Staff, so in some cases you actually want to cast less so you can scale up more. It's a real quality over quantity situation. But most of the time you can't really greed for so many carry items. They'll be slamming the Shojin on Rise pretty often. But yeah, 8 Portal, super strong, super stable, super solid. Sugarcraft Crown. Gain a Sugarcraft Emblem, a Redemption, and a Rumble. You get power for each item component placed on your board, and then you stack up a layer cake. The layers give AD and AP to your Sugarcrafters, and then eventually you'll start getting cash outs. Here's a list of cash outs. You get more components to ramp up your Sugarcraft faster. You eventually get a Champion Duplicator at 9. A Masterwork upgrade, turning one of your items into Radiant, whatever you pick, at 10, and then at 11 you get a Tactician's Crown. Most games you only really make it to 8 or 9. This comp and augment is really powerful on portals and situations where you can get a lot of components, because that's going to help you get more sugar stacks earlier. Big ones are Completed Anvil, Component Anvils, Crab Rave, and Scuttle Puddle seem to give it a bit more. Loot Subscription has a high chance, and the best one is Loaded Carousels. Now it doesn't work with Trainer Golem sadly because the Golem doesn't count as holding items, it has to be your own units. But if you get a Sugarcraft from Trainer Golem, another one is welcome, so you can drop Soraka. Do note that the augment gives you an emblem, a redemption, and a rumble. So the best time you can take this augment is if you can put in 4 Sugarcraft at 2-1, or at least you have a copy of either Jinx or Bard, so you have 3, and then finding Soraka is pretty easy. You want to get Sugarcraft in as fast as possible because you gain more sugar stacks the more Sugarcraft you have in. That means you can scale up faster and hopefully hit those cash outs. Your boards with Sugarcraft emblems can vary wildly. Usually you want to go fast 8 so you can secure Gwen and a stronger board, but you might be pretty low around this time as Sugarcraft is a scaling comp. Throughout the early game, you do want to try to win as much as possible to preserve HP. You'll often be weaker than others at stage 4 and then stronger at 5 and 6 once you get those cash outs. The most common holder of Sugarcraft emblem is Fiora. You can go Fiora Gwen duo carry. But you can play just about anything. Olaf the duo carry with Hunter with Jinx. You do want to give the Sugarcraft emblem itself to someone who benefits from AD and AP, so someone who's a carry. Morgana benefits a lot from the AP and is a preserver with Bard. I played it the other day and won a Rise carry, and eventually transitioned into Xerath 2. Very, very flexible comp. You really want to play what you can get. This is a fairly hard comp to pilot, but is very rewarding and very fun. Subscription service. Now and at the start of every stage, open a shop of 4 unique 4-cost champions and gain 6 gold. So the 4 costs you get offered are taken from the pool, but in the early game, it's generally just pure luck. They're basically 2 comps you want to play towards based on what you get in the shops. Either Callista Flex, usually with Fiora carry, or Rise Flex. And with Rise Flex, you either play Arcana Rise or get a Portal Spat and play a Portal later. This is really good with the Callista Flex board because you can hit Nasus, Rakan, Fiora, and Callista, whereas for Rise, you can hit Taric and Rise. And then Tahm Kench is just really good in general. You can also pick up Varus's, but I don't think Varus is that strong right now without a Smolder or a Pyrospat. Pyrospat did catch a nerf, but it's still pretty decent. If you're in like a Spatula Galaxy or Training Golems and you have a Pyrospat, then finding early Varus's can be really strong. The big one is Nasus though. Nasus is flexible in almost any comp. Plugging in Shapeshifters is really easy, and Nasus is definitely the best 4-cost tank. So you play either Callista or Rise, preferring Callista. There are 12 4-costs in the game, and you can hit 4 of them each time. You also need to consider which ones are strong early and which are strong late. I think Nami is a really good unit with a high average placement, but she gets carried by Mage and Veigar. Eldritch is not that strong right now, and Nami is pretty weak in the early game, especially without Mage. So I would steer clear of Nami. Karma, same idea, pretty reliant on preservers. Gwen is Gwen. Just not very good. Olaf is a pretty good unit early game, but it's pretty hard to play around an Olaf carry because all the other Frosts are not 4 costs. So you're going to be losing a bit of the value from your augment. That's why the Callista Flex board is so good with this. If you want to learn how to play Callista Flex, check out my latest video, a super in-depth Callista guide. It's got positioning, counter matchups, items when you want to play it, everything you need to know. Next up is Giant and Mighty. Your team will get larger, gaining 300 health and 5% max health. This is just a really good combat augment for any comp. It did catch a 25 HP nerf, but it's still really strong. It is extra good with Shapeshifters because of their interaction with HP, but that goes for pretty much every tank trait in the game. Vanguard gives shield based on your max health. 10th is Pandora's items, so at the start of each round, items on your bench are randomized, and then you'll gain 1 random Radiant item. This is a flexible augment, but there are definitely better Radiant items and definitely better users of the augment. You'll notice higher up is Ahri, Ryze, Zoe, basically the Ahri reroll. And then Veigar Vex is kind of high up, but still kind of low. I think it's definitely takeable, especially at 2-1 when you have time to reroll. Usually with the reroll comps, you might be playing a weak board early game anyway, so you'll have time to reroll into your perfect Radiant. This is a list of the best Radiants. Jackshow is Adaptive Radiant. This is really good on any AP carry, but especially on Ahri and Veigar. Rabadon's super good on Ahri and Veigar. Blue Buff and Shojin are really good on Veigar as well. You can run the Stone Plate for Wukong and Vex for the extra armor and MR. It also heals them as well. Radiant TG is always good on anyone. And don't forget that you don't just get a Radiant item, you get the effect of Pandora. So comps like Ahri, which have a Gigabus, which is going to be adaptive plus death cap. This is going to be good for that. Veigar is kind of dependent on best in slot. You want to get either blue buff, death cap, Nashers, blue buff, Shojin, Nashers, blue buff, Shojin, death cap. You want either 2 or 3 mana based items. So Pandora's can help you get all of that. This is number 11, but I'm going to give it a shout out. At what cost? Immediately go to level 6, but you don't get to choose your future augments. So this got a nerf. It lost 8 XP gained, but it's still pretty strong. You're going to go to level 6 immediately, which you want to build into a win streak, and then hopefully fast 8 into fast 9, legendary board, legendary carries. Like I said earlier, win streaking in this meta is a bit easier, since most comps are playing either scaling augments or scaling comps, or both. Most of the time, rerolls are going to be pretty weak in the early game. Exceptions are, of course, early 2 stars. Let's run through the silver augments. So most, if not all of these, are pretty flexible and can be played in every comp, whereas a lot of the gold augments and some prismatics, you only really want to look towards one comp. First up is Exiles. This is good in every comp. Your units that start combat with no adjacent allies gain a 25% max health shield for 10 seconds. The only time Exiles isn't good is if you have like Locket or stuff that benefits from being adjacent to each other. And generally this is better in comps that don't use a solo tank with Stoneplate style like Vex and Wukong, because you're losing a lot of value by just having one tank. Whereas if you have a bunch of frontliners spread out, then Exiles can take a lot of value. Super strong combat augment at any stage of the game. Stationary support still solid at 4.25. This is good in every comp. Take it if you don't want to win streak. The power spike is very delayed in 8 turns, but it is very powerful after that. The support item you get is completely random, so don't stress over that. Most of the support items you want to place in the front line, whereas some examples in the back line you want to do are Moonstone Renewer and the Eternal Flame. You want to backline those so they live as long as possible, as well as Locket, Zeke's Ice Cream Cone you might want to backline for your carries. Also, Randuin's super good combo with a movable object, which is still really good. Risky Schmoves, you will lose 20 player health, but after 7 player combats, you will gain 33 gold. So this will come in at 33 right before the second carousel. And a bonus 33 gold is really strong. With this, you definitely want to try to win streak throughout 2-1. So you prefer to take this if you have 2-star units. And as I said in the Prismatic section, win streaking is a lot easier in this meta than usual because people are playing pretty weak boards. You want to use that tempo to play towards 4 cost rather than reroll, although you can play reroll, but 33 gold, super good. 4 cost comps like Callista Flex are playable, but they benefit a lot from having the extra econ, so you can actually 2-star everyone. Silver Ticket, gain a free shop reroll after every 4 rounds, gain 3 gold. This is good for the same reasons that Prismatic Ticket is good. Refreshing on rerolls, charms, blah blah blah. Same comps, Vega of X, Ari, Jinx, stuff like that. This is actually better than Pandora's Bench usually. And don't get me wrong, I love Pandora's Bench. This is my favorite augment in the game, and I think it's so fun. But with Pandora's Bench, you're spending a lot of your money to reroll units, especially if you're playing for a 3-cost comp. Silver Ticket, you can bank up those rerolls until you want to roll down, especially if you're playing something like a comp that wants to roll at level 7. You can save out the gold and hit your econ breakpoints earlier to get more interest, rather than having to spend it on rerolling with Pandora's Bench. Keepers 1, combat start, grant units with adjacent allies a 160 health shield for 8 seconds, and then the shield stacks. So you want to clump everyone up together. This is good in most comps and is especially good in warrior reroll because you want to clump up everyone anyway. You can take this in most comps like Portal, but you want to avoid this in comps with a solo frontliner like Vex and Wukong. Yeah, best performers are comps with melee carries like Fiora, Callista, Kali, Nyla, stuff like that. It did catch a 15 shield nerf for each unit, but it's still really strong. Spoils of War 1. Enemies have a 25% chance to drop loot when killed. If you compare this one with the other spoils, it is the best performing one by far. Power to the other augments in its genre. Silver Spoils is really good for silver, especially in reroll comps. You can play this with any comp, but generally reroll comps are stronger earlier and are better for this augment. You only really want to take this though with a strong opener. If you have a lot of 2-stars and strong units, as well as flammable items, you can take this for extra econ. And do remember that it can randomly drop you stuff like duplicators and item components, which is super good in this meta. Silver Spoils, super good. Gold and Prismatic are okay, but not that good. Help us on the way is still up here after 8 player combats, just like the dummy. Choose one of 4 support items. So unlike the dummy, you can actually choose, but you don't get the added dummy HP. The best support items are true for most comps. Of course, if you get a movable object, a second random is super OP. Moonstone is super strong, just throw on the backline. But yeah, generally you just go to tactics.tools. You can go to Explorer and put in your comp and then type in support, or you can just go to this page, stats, items, support. Caretaker's Ally, gain a random 2-cost champion now, gain the same one every time you level up. The augment is still solid because it gives you a ton of copies and the rerolls are still really good. I think Akali Nyla is actually the best performer with this, as you want to play for Akali, Nyla, and Katarina 3-star. Kog'Maw got a nerf, but it's still really good. So any of Kog, Rumble, Nunu, Trist is good. Ari, of course, still really strong. Shyvana's not terrible. Like a Shyvana 3-star tank is not bad. Those are some of the more flexible ones like Shyvana, Galio, and kind of Zillion. Zillion you can also reroll with Hui to get the Frost bonus with the buffs. I will say Cassio and Syndra are really bad, so tough luck if you get those. So it has a high placement, but for that reason, I generally tend to avoid this augment. Over encumbered, for the next stage, you only get 1 bench slot, but after that, you get 3 item components. The components you get are completely random and are not in anvils. 3 extra components is still really good for a silver. You usually prefer to play a 4-cost comp or a 3-cost reroll comp because you can't hold more than 1 unit on your bench for the entire stage 2. But yeah, 3 components, really good. The last one I'm going to cover is component buffet. Whenever you would get a component, gain a random component anvil instead, and then you'll also gain a component instantly. So this is just a faster Pandora's, and you'll even see Pandora's at silver is not even that behind it. This helps you get your best in slot for comps that are dependent on it, like your Wukong tank, Jinx, and Preservers, or your Vega of X. Get those stoneplates and your best items for them in there. You can still miss with this, but it is much less likely to. Also note that this does transform random components you get from stuff like portals, Milios printing, and charms like sticky fingers, so that is a really good bonus effect. You don't have to play reroll, this is good in every comp, but it's going to help you get your best in slot items. Really good for comps that need stuff like a bunch of tiers, a bunch of rods, a bunch of cloaks, you know it. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Guys, it's 3 AM. I don't know what to do for an outro. Check out this star I got from Disneyland. From Pixar Pier. I think it's backwards. Pretty cool. There's like a little arcade in the park. Me and my sister went. Pretty fun. Pretty nice. Pretty sick. Dude, there's like a Weeb town. It's for Big Hero 6. But I thought I'd share it for the outro. Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. Yeah. YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok. I haven't been there for like 3 weeks, but I will be there at some point, maybe. I've been streaming. I hit GM today. That's pretty cool. Challenger is only 500 LP, so maybe we'll get there. Maybe not. We'll see. Please subscribe. Come on.